As our military pursues Iran's unconditional surrender with precision and strength, the left continues to push back on Operation Epic Fury. And while they condemn the conflict, Democrats are also trying to spin it for political gain. They're threatening to shut down the Senate until senior officials testify and won't commit on whether to pass or block more funds to the Department of War. They're pouncing on temporary oil pressure, taking aim at the administration's entire economic strategy. And they're still radicalizing against Israel, our key ally against the Iranian regime. So what's their end game? And would they really rather see Iran succeed than President Donald Trump? We brought our questions to the co-founder of the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. Well, Ben, we're so happy to sit down with you. And I want to start with Iran. Obviously, we've heard so much about it. It's kind of top of mind for so many people. And the president actually said that there's practically nothing left to target in Iran. He also noted that anytime he wants this war to end, it will ultimately end. So give me your assessment of this overall conflict.
I think that the president's move here is the single bravest foreign policy move of my lifetime. I think it can be the single most transformational foreign policy move since the fall of the Soviet Union, because Iran has been a thorn in the side of the United States and our allies for 47 years, as the president has made clear. They're responsible for the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans. They're developing a nuclear program, and they were moving more and more quickly toward a nuclear weapon that would have made it virtually impossible to stop them from spreading their terror tentacles around the region and then beyond that. And obviously what you've seen is a regime that I think is in its death throes, that is now lashing out in all these directions in an attempt to drive the administration to stop before the end. The president has made clear he is not going to stop before what he deems to be the end. And what that means is that obviously they can wreak some havoc in the Strait of Hormuz. I think that the United States military will make some work of them in that arena. Again, I think what the president is doing here is fulfilling a promise that president after president after president made and none fulfilled. And he made a statement the other day that I thought was exactly right, which is he needs to finish this problem because subsequent presidents will not.
Right.
And so he's no longer the president, and you end up with another Obama or Biden-type figure in office, then Iran will gain more and more power and be more and more of a danger to the region, to our allies, to our interests, and to the world more broadly. The United States military is performing in extraordinary fashion, unprecedented fashion. I mean, we have destroyed basically their entire ballistic missile facilities, all of their launchers. We are on the verge of destroying their nuclear capacity. We have destroyed the top levels of the IRGC. That's an astonishing performance, and again, an astonishing decision by the president.
There was a statement supposedly released by the new supreme leader of Iran, and I say supposedly because reports have this guy in a coma. Nonetheless, the statement said in part, "We will avenge the blood of our martyrs." So what do you make of this heavily weakened regime still in this moment right now trying to assert control over the people in Iran?
I think that their big fear right now is obviously the fragmentation of the regime. So we know from actually the foreign minister of Iran that the IRGC is not in direct centralized control of its own assets around the country. So trying to push the United States off the ball with threats, the threats to send oil to $200 a barrel, threats to permanently shut down the Strait of Hormuz or spread terror in the United States, all of these things are attempts to get the allies to stop before the end. They're trying to make sort of a last gasp stand to prevent the total weakening of the regime. Because even if the United States does not forcibly topple the regime, the fact that the regime itself is so weak means that with an economy that is totally non-functional, with an interior military that is tremendously weakened at the top levels, with no capacity to spread terror elsewhere, that means that the regime is on its last legs.
Well, it's no surprise that the Democrats have condemned the strikes on Iran as unauthorized and, of course, are desperately trying to spend things to benefit themselves politically, talking about this blip and uptick in oil and gas prices as an affordability crisis. How do you see that sort of messaging been playing out for the Democrats?
So I think that in the end, the American people like wars that we win, and they do not like wars that we lose. I mean, this is a very simple calculus for most Americans who are not familiar with the kind of complexities of why does Iran matter. I mean, the reality is geopolitically, obviously, Iran is the linchpin that holds together both China and Russia. And so, but most Americans are not familiar with all this and don't need to be familiar with all of this. Their view is going to be, if in 2 months the oil prices are back down to normal, which they will be, then by the time we hit the election, I mean, I checked the calendar, we're in March. The election is not next week. It is not a month from now. It is many months from now. And if the inflation continues to be low, And if the economy continues to soar, and by the way, if the Iranian regime were to actually collapse, the price of oil wouldn't just go down, it would plummet, because not only would you have freedom in the Strait of Hormuz again, but you would actually have an Iranian government reintegrated into the world economy. Right now, the Iranian government is responsible for putting 2 to 3 million barrels of oil per day on the market prior to the war. Right now, it's down to 1.2. Most of it's going to China. If there were a friendlier regime in Tehran, that number could be 5 or 6 million barrels of oil per day. And so the global price would come down pretty significantly.
When you look at polling, there's a very clear partisan divide over the actions taken in Iran. About 8 in 10 Republicans fully support it. 8 in 10 Democrats are fully against it. So what would you say to those who are still unsure about the actions taken in Iran right now?
I think it's fair to be uncertain about things as they unfold. And what the polls tend to show is that Americans are actually quite pro what's going on if there's a time limit put on it. So when asked if this war were to last weeks, not months, do you approve? It's like 3/4 of Americans said it's fine. If it were months, not years, meaning like 6 months or 7 months, it's about half-half, 46% approval, 54% disapprove. And if it lasts for years, obviously, with hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground, then you lose pretty much everybody. But the president is not going to do that. He's made that clear over and over and over again. And honestly, the lie that Democrats are telling, and that some sort of in the horseshoe writers are telling too, which is that this is an endless war, that the president's about to deploy hundreds of, it's going to be another Iraq war. It's just stupidity. It's total idiocy. It's ridiculous on its face. And so this idea that this is going to rip apart his coalition, on what basis can you even make that argument statistically? It doesn't exist. It's a creation of X and of TikTok. It is not reality.
We saw these awful events that took place at a synagogue in Michigan happen, earlier this week. And you have New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani helping to seem to prop up this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic sentiment. He invited Mahmoud Khalil, who led Colombia's anti-Israel protests, to a dinner at his home bin and defended his actions as exercising his First Amendment rights in protesting the ongoing genocide in Palestine. How do you react to that?
I mean, all I can say is that the people get what they vote for good and hard. And so we shouldn't be particularly surprised at who the mayor of New York is. He's made very clear who he is over and over and over again. And so pretending shock at him having Mahmoud Khalil there, which is a slap at the president, obviously, and a slap at ICE and a slap at our immigration enforcement bodies, him doing that, it is a feature, not a bug for Democrats. I think that it makes him more popular with the Democratic base. And there's a reason why he's become sort of a national figure for Democrats. And it's not for any reason I think that's good for the country.
I totally agree with that. Now, on the complete opposite side of the coin is President Donald Trump. If you had to grade his leadership during this time in our country right now, what would you give him?
I mean, A+. Right now, I mean, again, I think what you're watching him do in Iran is not only unprecedented in terms of its political courage. I think that it is and has the potential to be a true game changer for America's role in the world, not only for the next 10 or 20 years, but for the coming century. Because what he is doing is he's reasserting American authority in the world. He is saying that we are not a country that is receding inside our own borders. We're not a country that looks back at a beautiful past but looks forward to kind of a sad future of decline. He's reinvigorating a vision of America strong on the world stage, and he understands on an innate gut level. The president's foreign policy has always been rooted in that peace through strength principle, in the idea that the best way to achieve peace is for people to understand that inside the velvet glove is an iron fist. You actually have to throw your enemies off their game. You actually have to make the hard decisions that make your opponents understand that they cannot cross us. And I think the president, it's a real estate negotiation to him. And guess what? The rules of New York real estate actually apply incredibly well to the politics of the Middle East, for example.
You've been so generous with your time. Thank you for welcoming us here. And thanks for sitting down with us today. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.